How's it going, folks? Recording another best ball video here. And because I'm recording, I've got the 101 because that's how this stuff works. Really does seem to be that way. I've been picking 9th through 12th every draft, and now that I'm going to record, they're like, "Oh, he's recording. We'll give him the 101." So I will be taking Jonathan Taylor here. Have some really interesting topics to discuss. And as you'll see, the title for this video is The Curious Case of Stefon Diggs. And, we're going to talk about something called better and best ball points. So I'll take Jonathan Taylor here. Maybe. Take Jonathan Taylor here. And so let's get into this better and best ball points discussion. So this started off in our Discord because I had brought up that Stefon Diggs was kind of getting trashed a little too badly for his season last year. I mean, he had 100 catches, 1,250 yards, 10 touchdowns. So it seemed odd that people were so down on his season. And it partially made sense why people were and partially didn't. And there were some reasons for that. So people were referring to this better and best ball points thing where we see, how many best ball points per game over the average these people score. The problem with this data is this data to begin with wasn't correct. So the reason why the data, in my opinion, is not correct is they were using QB12 for QBs and then RB24, wide receiver 36, and tight end 12 for those positions, right? Well, it's just it's not how you do this because it doesn't account for the flex position at all. So when I reran this information, instead of using RB24, wide receiver 36, and tight end 12 for each position, I just used flex 84 each week as the control instead. Now, why did I pick flex 84? Because you have 7 positions that score for you other than quarterback, right? So you got quarterback, and then you have 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. So that's 7 spots. So 7 times 12 teams is 84 players on average that are going to score for you, or always are going to score for you, the 84 spots. So you got 7 positions, 12 teams, 84 spots. This helps you account for the flex. This is not accounting for. And it actually made a huge difference in Stefon Diggs' score because he had a median scoring year where he scored he didn't have a bunch of spike weeks. He scored a lower average type of points all season long. So it actually moved him quite a bit of points. So if you look on this list, Diggs was better in best ball point scorer, number 52 with 62.3. Oh, the other thing that this did, in my opinion, incorrectly is it just used the average for the year, not the actual score of the week. And this isn't meant to be a preview. It's meant to be a review of what actually happened last year. So if you're doing a review of what actually happened last year, you should use the actual, flex 84 points of each week because those fluctuated quite a bit, especially in the early weeks when there was no bye weeks. So, week 1, 2, 3, and 4, player 84 scored 9.8, 8.7, 9.1, and 9.1 points those weeks. Whereas once the bye weeks and attrition had hit later in the season, weeks 11, 12, and 13, they scored 7.2, 7.3, and 7 points. Player number 84 did. So I used the actual scores from each week in the review that I did. And I used flex 84 as the baseline instead of, running back 24, wide receiver 36, tight end 12. That way I'm actually accounting for the fact that there's a flex position. So you see here, Diggs had a score of 62.3. When I reran this using, changing all that stuff to what I think is more accurate, more correct, he actually had a score of 85.1, which is a huge difference from 62.3. Got to go back here and look at this board. We are up. So I think I'm going to go with AJ Brown as one of my picks. I love, love, love Hurts. And I'm going to go with Aaron Jones as my other pick. And I will get more into why I'm picking Aaron Jones in a few minutes. So we went with AJ Brown. I love Hurts. I really want to get some Hurts stacks. Can we guarantee we're going to get one? No. But AJ Brown for me was close with anybody on the board. And there is a specific reason why I took Aaron Jones, which I'll get to in a little bit. So getting back to the Diggs thing. So Diggs' score in here was 62.3, when if you ran the numbers accounting for the flex position and using the actual scores of each week, like I said, reminder, this is a review of last year. So, you kind of really need to use the actual scores from the week. He scored 85.1. So, almost 22.8 points more than he did here, which would up this number by 1 1/3. So 1.3. So he would jump all the way up here above Mike Evans as like player number 27 or so, which is a big deal. Now, keep in mind, every single player is going to move up. So he's not actually going to jump quite that high because every single player is going to move up when you account for the flex. The thing is a guy who scored their points more medianly, like Stefon Diggs, is going to jump a lot higher than a guy that had the massive peaks and massive valleys because all their scores are pretty much already being accounted for. And their shit weeks are no different, right? Their shit weeks are still 0. And their amazing weeks are still amazing. And they're not coming in near the cutoff and the median. So that's why it doesn't affect their scores much. For example, we have Tyreek Hill, who, let's look at him on here. Tyreek Hill scored 104.9 with the way they've calculated the points. And with the way I've recalculated them using the weekly actual scores that happened and accounting for the flex, he scored 108.6. So he only scored like 4 more points. So you see it wasn't as big a difference as like Stefon Diggs. So he was still better than Diggs, right? So like if Diggs jumped up to 5.2, this basically didn't move Tyreek Hill hardly at all. Maybe go to 6.7 at the most. But now you see like they're only 1.5 per week apart instead of 6.62. Right now they're 2.5 points. So basically it was like a whole point per week difference when you calculated Diggs' points correctly. Which is not to say Diggs was a good pick or anything in any way, shape, or form. He wasn't. But exactly how bad of a pick he was is being over-exaggerated because people have calculated the points incorrectly, in my opinion. I'm going to be up soon, so I'm going to take a break to concentrate on what I've got going on here. Then I'll try to get into the why I took Aaron Jones there at the 1-2 or 2-3 turn, because I did pick some data out of this. When I was researching all this crap, a bunch of other things became apparent. And I think there's actually like a lot of useful information that we can get from that. So the only tight end I'm interested in is Kittle. Would love to get him. I'm interested in Hollywood, Jerry Jeudy, tiny bit in Breece Hall if I want to go with like a massive like hyper fragile build here. I don't like going super hyper fragile this early. That sucked. So we lost out on Kittle. So we could go with McLaurin and Jeudy. I definitely want to go with Jeudy. That's one's for sure. It's basically Jeudy and Hall or Jeudy and McLaurin. Let's go with Jeudy and let's go with Hall. I'm really not going to have this type of build much, so I want to do it. And it like leads me to more of the next conversation I'm about to get into. So why did I select Aaron Jones here? The only thing is now we're going to like miss out on Hurts, which sucks, but whatever. There's nothing we could really do about it unless we wanted to take Hurts that early. I think I'll have like plenty of. I'm going to draft like a ton of AJ Brown at the end of round 1, and I already have a billion Hurts. So I want to get into this conversation anyway, and why I took Aaron Jones there. So when I was researching this Stefon Diggs stuff, right, I ran the numbers for like a whole bunch of the round 1 and round 2 picks. So Diggs scored 85.1 points over replacement, or better in best ball points, as this article refers to them. And he was kind of a bad pick. He was not a good pick, but it wasn't so disastrous that like your whole team was like crap because you had Diggs. It just kind of sucked, and it definitely hurt. And you would have rather had some of the players around him than you would have rather had him than some of the other players. Now let's look at some players that scored similar, better in best ball points to Diggs. So we got Derrick Henry, who had 96.7 by my calculations. Or sorry, 89.6 by my calculations, 96.7 by theirs. Derrick Henry got hurt. By the way, I calculated it because of how much higher the scoring was weeks 1 through 4, which were some of the only weeks he played. So that's what made his score actually go down a bit. But anyways, Derrick Henry was comparable to Diggs in better than best ball points last year, despite missing all those games, right? So like he still helped your team almost as much as Diggs during the regular season. The only thing is he was obviously out for the playoffs, which is huge, which you don't want in these tournaments because you like need to win in the playoffs or else you don't win money. So obviously you would have rather had Diggs than Derrick Henry. But it's notable that Derrick Henry scored more better in best ball points than Diggs despite missing all that time, right? Now if you go look at some other players who missed time, Alvin Kamara had 91, which was a little bit more than Diggs. Dalvin Cook had 91, which is a little bit more than Diggs. So those players had, both of them missed time during the season. So if either one of them had stayed healthy, they fucking dust Diggs. It's not close, right? Then if you look at Travis Kelce, he only scored 99.8, which is still more than Diggs, right? It's 14. But again, compare Kelce, who stayed healthy through most of the year, to Kamara, to Cook, to Derrick Henry. He's nowhere near what they would have given you in better and best ball points if they stayed healthy. They would have destroyed Kelce. So what I'm gleaning from this is like you and a lot of these tournaments have been won by builds that started RB. So what I'm gaining from this is to win this tournament, it's a huge advantage if you start RB and you like hit. Oh, that was good for us. We get Russell Wilson here to go with Judy. That's huge. Assume Sutton's already gone, right? Yeah. Okay, we're not going to take him. We'll take Drake London or Burks. Is there any reason to take one over the other? Let's take Burks this time. I took Drake London the last time I had that discussion. Plus, now we have 2 copies of AJ Brown. So, getting back to what I was talking about, if the running backs had stayed healthy, Cook and Kamara, they would have crushed Kelce. They would have crushed Diggs. They would have crushed Tyreek Hill. And like Tyreek Hill, Kelce, and Diggs all had like reasonably good seasons, right? So let's look at the scores for some other guys that didn't get hurt that are running backs, okay? We've got Austin Eckler, 161.3 better in best ball points, a.k.a. twice as good as Stefon Diggs. Almost twice, like 1.5 times better than Travis Kelce, 1.5 times better than Tyreek Hill. So if you can get the running backs that, 1, stay healthy, and 2, have that like real upside to score as top running backs, they just dust these other positions. So you've seen a lot of these big tournaments be won by teams that started with like running back, and then smashed on wide receivers by hitting like the Cups and the Debos and guys like that. And obviously, a ton of your later rounds pick matter as well. You had to have Rashad Penny in the playoffs. You had to have Jamar Chase. But the baseline of having 2 running backs in round 1 and 2 that hit seems huge. Now, do you always have to do that? No. And there's a few reasons why. There are some running backs that you don't have to draft in round 1 or 2 that probably have that same upside, right? Then you can kind of mix and match. Then you can kind of get some elite, super elite wide receivers mixed in. You can get Travis Kelce mixed in. You can get Mark Andrews mixed in. So, like, it's kind of the job of identifying who are the running backs past round 2 that you think can still finish as top 5 running backs. I think there's some guys. I think there's Aaron Jones. I think there's James Conner. I think there's Breece Hall. Like, I'm talking about guys that don't need an injury to get up there, obviously. There's a whole bunch of guys with injuries that can get up there, but that's like a whole different way of thinking. I'm trying to get 2 of these guys that don't need an injury and can finish in the top 5 RBs. I think it's not that crazy to say Aaron Jones can. Whenever Devontae Adams has been out, Aaron Jones has absolutely smashed. Now, yes, A.J. Dillon could with an Aaron Jones injury, or Aaron Jones could go completely berserk with an A.J. Dillon injury. But I think Aaron Jones, just with Devontae Adams being gone, can get up there. He's done it before. Will he do it? Who knows? But I think it's in his range of outcomes. I think Breece Hall can do it because of his pass catching ability. If the Jets offense were to make a huge step forward, his own skill, I think that would be a part of it. I think James Conner can do it. He showed he could do it last year because the Cardinals offense offers such high touchdown potential, and especially once he was catching passes with Chase Edmonds out of there, he was just going off. So Connor's another guy. I think the top outcome for Cam Akers puts him in that conversation. So these are kind of guys I'm kind of like looking at. I want to get 2 of, like Taylor. Like, there's a point where I would take Derrick Henry now that I've looked at this data, whereas before there wasn't. There's a point where I would take Austin Eckler now, where I was really off him because I hate the fact that Spiller is there. But, like, what if we're wrong and about, like, how much the workload gets split, and, like, that Eckler only loses, like, 15% of his work. Like, if he loses 20 points off of his score last year, he's still dusting the wide receivers, dusting them badly. So that would be if he lost 15%. He'd lose 20 points. He'd still be crushing them. If he loses 25%, so then you have him down to 120 points last year, guess what? Still beating Kelce, still beating Hill, still beating Diggs. Now, should you be taking these running backs over guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Cooper Kupp? No. I think the answer is soundly no. Because, like, they also went crazy. Like, Jamar Chase, for example, had 152 better in best ball points by my metrics, which I think is more accurate than this actual article has, like I explained before. So, like, Chase was comparable to Eckler. So, like, Chase, Jefferson, Devontae Adams, like, these guys are just as good as the running backs. I do think, like, you should be taking JT and Christian McCaffrey 1 and 2. But right now, Kupp's ADP is 2 and Christian McCaffrey's is later. So I think I would rather just stick to ADP for the time being. I want to kind of see what it's going to take to get Akua Bunam. I think I have to wait around. He's just like too early to be taking him right now. I definitely am not interested in a running back. Like, I've taken 3 of these guys I think can go off. I want to wait around and see if I can get Akua Bunam. I'm just going to take a couple wide receivers here. I'm going to take Chris Olave. And I'm going to take Kadarius Toney. I still believe in this guy's like ceiling, which is what we really want for these things. But man, he's sketch. I'm not going to lie. He is sketch. So I'm going to hope I can get Akua Boonham on the way back. If not, we'll target like Tim Patrick or KJ Hamler later. For secondary stacks, we can consider Ryan Tannehill. We can consider Winston. We can consider Daniel Jones. So anyway, I'm getting more open-minded now to taking like Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler. So for me, in this particular contest, I'm not going to be taking Kamara and Cook at all. And it has to do with the $1 million to first prize for the regular season champion. I want like the most pulls I can get of that. It's 10% of the prize pool. So I don't want to take guys I think can be suspended. But like how I'm going to counteract that is when we draft the puppy teams and there is no regular season champion prize, I'm going to just take a bunch of extra shares of Kamara and Cook. Like pray to God they don't get suspended and that they're like the guys who hit this like huge seasons at running back. So I'm gonna like really use my puppies entries to hammer Cook, Kamara, Sean Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, like kind of get exposure to those guys and those. But for the time being in this particular contest, I'm going to avoid them. I definitely understand like people that don't want to do that because they just want to shoot for the number one prize. But like for me, with 10% of the prize pool being involved, I want to have max pulls at that as well. So I'm only drafting 20 teams in May for this. Going to do 10 in June, 10 in July, and 60 in August because I'm going to do 100 entries. So this is team 12. So I'm going to be doing 8 more of these in May. Hopefully a puppy opens up at some point and I can start, getting some Kamara and Cook exposure. So I think, like, where would I actually start taking Derrick Henry, Eckler, Najee? For me, I think it's JT, then Cup because of ADP, then CMC. Then for me, it's Chase and Jefferson. Then it's probably Najee for me, maybe Derrick Henry. I think that's kind of close. So it's Najee or Derrick Henry or Najee. Then probably like Eckler, Devontae Adams, Kelsey, Diggs. But I want to keep in mind I want to get some of these running backs that I think without injury can finish top 5. I think it's in the range of outcomes. So to me, that's guys like Aaron Jones and Breece Hall and James Conner, Javonte Williams. Like Javonte Williams just needs to be given the 65% workload. He can do it. He doesn't need an injury to Melvin Gordon, I don't think. Injury to Melvin Gordon obviously would be massive. That's possible, but I think even without it, if he was to be given the workload, that he could get there. So I think I've discussed most of the things that I wanted to discuss here. So yeah, that was why this is called The Curious Case of Stefon Diggs. My research into, I don't think Diggs is quite as shitty as everyone else does. And he wasn't quite as shitty as everyone else was thinking he was, but he still was pretty shitty. Just my argument was never that he was good. It was just that we were saying that he was way shittier than he actually was, which I think was proven true. And I have some interesting choices here. I'm going to take a Akua Boonham. Easy one. What do we got at wide receiver? We got Galladay. Kind of try to set up a Daniel Jones stack if I want to do that. I could take Ramondre, who I really, really like. I want heavy. I'm going to take Galladay. So I went like heavy on running backs early, so I'm not going to take another running back early. Another running back, well, it's not early anymore, but I'm not going to take another running back there. So some running backs I'm looking at in round 18 right now are Sony Michel and Darrell Williams because they're free agents. And I believe if they were to get signed by a team, that their value would shoot way up past 18. I mean, I'm not quite sure exactly how high. Would depend on what team, but let's say for argument's sake, that it's looking like Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both not coming back very quickly. Like right now, we don't know. It's still May. It's too early to tell on them, so we don't have the information. But I'm just saying, what if that came up? And the Ravens were to sign one of Sony Michel or Darrell Williams or maybe Justin Jackson, these unsigned guys, and that person moved up the depth chart to be the starting running back for part of the season or maybe longer. Those guys would like fly off the boards if they signed with the Ravens or the Saints or even the Cardinals, because people would then see them as the main handcuff to James Conner, who's really a guy that can finish, as a top 5 running back because of his situation, not because of his actual ability. So that's why in round 18 and even around 17, I'm starting to be interested in Sony Michel and Darrell Williams. Justin Jackson as well, Devontae Booker, someone that somebody brought up. I think that they're all fairly reasonable in that grouping there. So I need to keep in mind I do not want to draft Michael Carter on this team if he falls to me, which I don't think he will anyway, but because I have Brees. So yeah, I definitely, from doing all this Diggs research into how bad he was last year, noticed how good these running backs would actually be if they had stayed healthy. I still think you only want to take probably 2 is optimal. I took 3 this time. That is definitely the max. You don't want to start going wild because you still want to get some of these backups that can have huge value boosts with an injury. Like the top end handcuff guys that also might be able to finish top 5, like a Tony Pollard if Zeke were to get hurt and stuff like that. So you can even take one of these guys and then a bunch of those guys, hoping, like an Isaiah Spiller if Eckler gets hurt, or a Pollard if Zeke gets hurt. But I think hitting the guys that don't need injuries to finish top 5, at least 2 of them, is a really good way, if you just get lucky with health, to have a shot to win one of these contests. They're just so dominant and better than best ball points over, some wide receivers. They weren't that much dominant over Chase, and they weren't dominant over Kupp. But I think it's a little easier to tell who the top running backs are than to tell who the wide receivers are, right? I guess that's variant from year to year to some degree. There's been years where we're able to predict the top wide receivers fairly easily. But you're not doing this and fading Kupp and Chase and Jefferson and Adams, right? You're just more targeting getting 2 of these running backs that can have the top 5 season by hook or by crook. I also think Hero, like I said, with a bunch of the highest end handcuffs is pretty good too. Like Jonathan Taylor, and then a bunch of wide receivers, and then Spiller and Pollard, and then a few other guys. I really, really like Spiller quite a bit. You can't tell. I think he has standalone value, and I think his value goes kind of wild if Eckler gets hurt. He could definitely be a massive league winner type. I'm going to take Pickens here. It's a guy I really like the upside on. It's already 7 wide receivers, huh? Then it's close between Stevenson and Madison. I'll take Madison this time. I have a ton of Stevenson. Probably going to go 3 tight ends with this build. Might even go 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, and then go with 5 running backs and 7 wide receivers. We already have 7 wide receivers. So we'll see if one of Tannehill or Daniel Jones or Winston makes it back to us. Winston, I at least have Olave, and we can pull a trick if I pick Winston. A little tricksy. I have up my sleeve. I want to take a look at Josh Larkey's team. He's in this draft with us. Fun guy, hates stats. He's got Kyler and Lance. Fournette, Singletary, Pierce. Ooh. Cooper Kupp. Doesn't have anyone to go with Lance. That's kind of a bummer. He does have Kyler with Hopkins and Ertz. Oh, and he's got Hollywood as well. That's pretty interesting. I like that. I like this team other than I'm not a huge fan of Trey Lance with no stack pieces. Maybe I'll take Danny Gray in the very last round or something. So I think I've discussed most of the things that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, definitely did not realize quite what it would mean to have those running backs stay healthy. I'm going to run the numbers on some more players. Better in best ball points with what I think is the better control to get more accurate data than the data from this article. And next video, I might go through some more of that data. So this is going to be a 3 tight end team, that's for sure. Quarterback, I'm not sure. It could be 2 or 3. Three quarterback builds are pretty strong. I definitely think we only need 5 running backs. I mean, we could get away with 4 running backs for sure. I don't love being hyper fragile. I consider 4 hyper fragile. Some people consider 3. But I don't love being hyper fragile in drafts in May. I absolutely love being hyper fragile in drafts in August. Once you have a lot more information and some injuries have already occurred, then I'm far, far more down with it. So what would I change about this team if I could? Would have been nice to have Hurts fall to us, but I don't hate having Russell Wilson, Judy, and Akuabunum. Given the opportunity, would I pick Hurts over Burks? Was that the pick I made? Hurts over Burks? Or was it Hurts over Hall, Judy? I have to look and see when Hurts got drafted to know. No. So I would have had to take Hurts over Judy or Bruce Hall. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. So I'm cool with not having Hurts in this build and the way things turned out. Would have been amazing if he fell to us, instead of one of the Burks Russell Wilson picks. There's 2 players on the board I'd really, really like to get. 2 picks before us. There's a 3rd player that I'm fine with ending up with if one of them goes. Don't do it to me. All right. We got past that one. Can we get past? Yes. Right, so we're going to take Noah Fant, who's the last tight end I really, really like. And we are also going to take Daniel Jones, who we have the 2 stack pieces for. So we got Daniel Jones with Tony and Galladay. We've got Akuabunum and Jerry Jeudy with Russ Wilson. Definitely going to pick a 3rd tight end in this build, I think. It's going to, somewhat matter what our options are. But I think that this might be a good build to pull out a little trick. Someone got us. So the trick I was discussing is I was going to take Taysom Hill as our third tight end, but someone already did that. So I do think Taysom Hill has like a little bit of a chance to play some quarterback this year. Like, I realize he's only working out with the tight ends, right? They don't really want him to play quarterback anymore. But let's remember how crazy these football seasons get, all right? All it takes is like Jameis Winston is down and Andy Dalton is on COVID protocols in week 16, and boom, you got Taysom Hill starting in your playoff week. Because I do think they would still start him over the Notre Dame kid there that I'm forgetting his name. That's embarrassing because I'm the Saints fan. Ian Book. I do think they would turn to Taysom Hill before Ian Book. So the chance that Taysom Hill starts a game of quarterback this season, there is one. It's not high. It's not great, but like, how often have you seen two injuries at the same position in football? It happens. So I don't mind having a little bit of Taysom Hill at tight end 3 in a 3 tight end build. Would I do it in a 2 tight end build? I don't think so. He would have to get like pretty good use as a weapon to be worthwhile. You know, like any week a tight end scores a touchdown, they're pretty much like worthwhile. So like he should get some rushing, he should get some catches. But I wouldn't expect it to be amazing. So I definitely prefer Taysom Hill as tight end 3 when you're doing a 3 tight end build. This doesn't really have to be a 3 tight end build, but like considering like the 7 wide receivers that we got, the 3 running backs that we got to start, Wilson and Daniel Jones, I think I'm fine just stopping at wide receiver in this build. One of the things that I've picked up the most from all the underdog guys' work and the articles that they've put out is like, people a lot of times, especially if you're using a bunch of early draft capital on wide receivers, are just drafting too many wide receivers. And it's weakening the other positions and it's lowering their advance rates. So like, if you take a bunch of wide receivers early, like a 0 RB type of build, you should stop at 7 wide receivers. The advance rate for those type of teams is like 30%. Whereas it goes all the way down to like 20% when you start getting up near like 8. And then like, I think 9 is down to like 15%. There are definitely builds where you want 8 or 9 wide receivers, but they're not the ones when you're using a whole bunch of early picks on wide receivers. Our wide receivers, we didn't really use a whole bunch of early picks, so we're kind of like somewhat in the middle. So like, this to me is either 7 or 8 wide receiver build. Either one would be fine. It's just a matter of like, what else do we want to do? With our running backs, it would be perfectly reasonable to stop at 4 running backs in this build. I might even do that. We'll see. Like, we have 3 guys that probably have their own volition. If you want to argue Breece Hall can't finish the top 5, fine. I'm not going to argue with you that much, but like, he definitely finishes like a top 12 or top 10 running back. Aaron Jones has done it before, and he's in the best position for him to do it now. Like, this is the position where he ends up doing it. So he could definitely finish as a top 5, and Jonathan Taylor obviously finished last year as the 1. Does that mean he'll be the 1 this year? Hell no, but certainly within the realm of possibility. So we don't have to stick with 2 quarterbacks either. Let's see how the next few picks go and kind of decide what we want to do. Some interesting stack options we have available to us. Would have loved to get Jameis Winston there. So this is 16 and 17. I want to take John Mechie. If we take John Mechie, that means we're stopping at 4. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So I am going to stop at 4 running backs for this particular build. Take Mechie there. To go with Davis Mills. So depending what our options at running back tight end are this last round, we can decide if we want the 3rd tight end or if we want to get the 5th running back. The tight end options might be so abysmal that we just decide to go with the 5th running back. But if there's reasonable tight end options, I'll probably take a tight end. The reason why I took John Mechie there instead of taking Brevin Jordan is I thought there was a little bit better chance that Brevin Jordan didn't go to the last round. But like, maybe I should have taken Brevin Jordan in the hopes Wan'Dale Robinson made it to us in the last round. Because Wan'Dale is one of my favorite round 18 picks. We should have our options of like Darrell Williams and Sony at running back, which are guys I like. We could just take another like super high end handcuff like Hassan Haskins, who could go nuts if Derrick Henry gets hurt. If we could go that route if we want a 5th running back, and if we want to just stick with these 2 tight ends. These 2 tight ends are good enough to stop with 2, so we definitely can choose between 5 running backs and 2 tight ends, or 3 tight ends, sorry. So let's earmark a few people that we want. Is there anybody else on this list? ECCS. Keontae Ingram's a little lower down on my list. I would probably only take him if he was the last of these people left, because I still think that there's a good chance that Arizona brings someone in. Same with Batty. Like, I'm all for jamming these 2 guys, but like, I'd rather jam them in a month. Like a month from now when Darrell Williams and Sony Michel are signed. One, because I think these guys are going to rise in value and be harder to get in round like 17 or 18. And 2, because these guys actually, like, some of the teams that have been sniffing around running backs are Arizona, Baltimore, the Saints, Miami. Miami brought in Sony, so. Is there any other tight end I would take other than Brevin Jordan? I highly doubt it. There's Jelani Woods, but I think I would just, if Brevin Jordan goes, I'm just going to take a running back and settle with Fan Akuabunum. Brevin Jordan's there, I'll probably take Brevin Jordan. I think the running backs, I would probably take them in the order they are. I might take Sony or Darrell Williams over Hassan Haskins just because, like I said, I think they're going to become harder to get once they get signed. But I'm not really sure that they have the upside that Hassan Haskins does. Given our running back room, I kind of like think Hassan Haskins fits this build a little better. Just because, like, if these guys are healthy and we get a hit from down here, we need it to be like a home run hit, or else it's just not going to score much for us. Ooh, Hassan Haskins off the board. Well, this should be Brevin Jordan, so if it's not, this person is in trouble. Oh, nice. Sony, Darrell Williams. Well, I can take these 2 off the list for now. Only have 2 more picks before us. Buffalo chicken dip. Let us live. Oh, that's so nice. Let's go look at this team. I love this team. So I've been giving myself a lot of B and B minuses in these drafts lately. I think that this one is going to be an A. Obviously, it's a huge advantage when you pick first, but so we ended up with Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, Davis Mills. We ended up with Judy and Akua Bunum to go with Russell Wilson. We ended up with Tony and Galladay to go with Daniel Jones. We ended up with Mechie and Brevin Jordan to go with Davis Mills. Then our running backs, we got three guys that, in my opinion, can finish as top tens, two guys that can finish as top fives. We've got elite end handcuff that can hop in there and become like a top five, top 10 guy in Madison. Wide receiver group is 8 deep with A.J. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, George Pickens, and John Mechie. And then for tight end, we got Akua Bunum, Noah Fant, and Brevin Jordan. Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I think this is probably my favorite Best Ball Mania 3 team so far, which would make sense since we picked 101. Appreciate the view and have a good one. Oh, good luck in your drafts, folks.